Hey everyone! Today I am going to be interviewing Tete.Depunk about how she started becoming a writer and her current project, 70 Fierce Years. This will serve as a great introduction and summary to Tete's work and what she plans to achieve in the next couple of years. So, first of all, Tete, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started as a writer?
Yes, thank you so much for having me here, Fortune's Games. It's an honor to be here. And for those of you who may not know me, my name is Tete.Depunk, and I am a freelance writer as well as a content creator. I am currently 29 years old, and I live in a rural area of central Pennsylvania. And I guess you could say I'm something between a millennial and a 90s kid. I consider myself a writer first and an artist second. I love storytelling and characters and bringing characters to life, and I'm very passionate about bringing people's experiences to life through the power of literary narration. How I got into writing just stemmed from my love of stories. I always loved stories as a kid. I became very involved in a story whenever I listened to one. Um, I resonated very highly with the characters. I felt like they were real people. I felt sympathy and empathy for them. I felt emotions for them. Any kind of story, whether it was a fairy tale, a short story, a newspaper thing that I had read, or even a Disney movie or a movie in general, I felt, very connected to the characters and I wanted to tell these stories. And I began writing at a very early age. As soon as I could write, I began to write, very long, winding, but sometimes short stories in little journals that I'd have. Or I would put together, random pictures and staple them together to make like a little, very, very badly drawn comic book by a 6 year old. And
Mm.
I really wanted to tell stories, so I really didn't discipline myself in writing until my later years, like around 16, 17, 18. And of course, my earlier writings, of course, were pretty rudimentary and very awkward as any first writer. But then I began to seriously mature as a writer thanks to two people. The first being a person named Jen, who had really introduced me into using historical accuracy in my writing, as well as using logic and getting into the person's mind. And then, of course, I think you have played a very, very pivotal, monumental, integral role in helping me mature and, form myself into the writer I am today.
Hmm. Right. You've really grown, especially during the last couple of years as a writer. You were someone who mostly posted on DeviantArt a few years ago, and you only posted maybe a few chapters every week of your project, 70 Fierce Years. But now you are writing almost 5,000 words a day whenever you have the time. And it's amazing how quickly you're finishing the series, especially since it is a very heavy novel. It is around 400 pages, I think. Once it is published, it will be this one of these big tomes. So this is going to be very impressive. Can you tell us a little bit about where you got the idea for 70 Fierce Years and what it's about?
So 70 Fierce Years is a very has an unusual start. The character Andre had been with me a very long time. I would say since I was 14, 15, around 2007, I began to understand or formulate this man. And this man was communicating very clearly with me, but I wasn't a very clear listener back then. But I knew several things about him. One, that he was very tall, one, that he was rather strong, and three, that he had dark hair, dark eyes, and that he had a very bad temper. These were very vague ideas, and I, being a very poor, immature listener, had kind of floundered with him for a very long time until I had met you. So I really didn't understand or get to know him entirely well um, until you and I had been discussing. and you pretty much had given me an epiphany, and you had introduced me to the poet Vladimirovich Mayakovsky, who greatly resembles Andre to a degree if you combine him with the actor Andrei Chernisov. um, but as I said, Andre had been with me a very long time. He is very individualistic. He's very clear and communicative when you listen to him. And he's been basically sort of, I guess, for lack of a better word, kind of communicating through me. And I've been very honored to write down his narration, and I guess sort of be like a translator for him as well,
Mm-hmm.
and try to bring to life his experiences. So I guess to summarize what 70 Fierce Years is about, it is basically, to sum it up, Andrei Danilovich Novoshkanov is a former Don Cossack officer who, uh, after the Russian Revolution, unfortunately loses all his property, his rank, even his own identity and ethnicity in the very brutal and sweeping policies of the decossification of southern Russia and Ukraine after the wake of the revolution. And of course, after the failed counter revolution as enacted by the Don National Army, which Andre had been very part of, and he really believed in the cause, to fight against communism, but lost. So basically, what it is you have this man. He's in his same land, but now the land has become very alien, and he feels like a foreigner to it. It feels He feels, if you will, kind of an alien in his own home, and now it's up to him to try to regain his sense of self and regain, if you will, what his place and purpose is in this new life, without losing that sense of self, with the onslaught of, totalitarianism, communism.
Mm-hmm. Right. So would you say this is a historical and psychological novel?
I would definitely say it is historical and psychological. I think it's a very personal novel too, because Andre doesn't quite see things on the grand scale. Everything is very individual to him. And Andre, he is a bit selfish, but when he does allow certain people into the circle of his heart, if you will, he is very protective, and will do anything for those that he loves and cares about.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And how was the writing process for 70 Fierce Years like? How has it evolved since COVID? Has COVID impacted your productivity on the series?
I think it has, if anything, it's helped it, ironically. It's helped it greatly, um, because I think it's given me a little bit more time to focus on the writing, do a little bit more research, because even though Andre's relaying information to me, if you will, I guess you could call it like channeling. I do have to fact check quite a bit, because lots of things get lost in translation. Andre will say things that he assumes I know, but I don't know Andre, because I am not a man from early 20th century southern Russia. I am a woman from 21st century North America. So I
Mm-hmm.
do have to do a bit of fact checking and make sure I've gotten everything right. And then sometimes his memory doesn't always serve him right either. So there is a bit of fact checking to be done. I think the main thing above all, though, is for me to listen very carefully and try to get Andre's voice exactly as he's narrating it. And like I said, he has a very, very individualistic speech pattern, and the way he narrates things. It's very it's furious, it's boisterous, it's bombastic, it's belligerent. A lot of bees there. Um, but it is at the heart very sincere, very genuine, and it's brimming with sincerity and warmth.
Mm-hmm. Right, it is. And it's very personal too. I think compared to a lot of your previous novel projects, Andre is someone who speaks very honestly and directly. And this is something that you find easy to write.
I find it very easy to write. I find it very rewarding to write, because he simply he simply manifests himself. He simply is himself, and He's very honest, he's very blunt, he's speaking right from his mind and heart. Sometimes he does wax poetical, but Andre will be the first to admit that he is a bit of a romantic type. And while he doesn't consider himself a poet, he does like to think in poetical terms because he feels a lot of things can't be analyzed or summed into theories or figures. He feels that simply people just have to be, and that, people just have to sort of, if you will, let the chapels of their hearts set on fire.
Mm-hmm. If you had to give one piece of writing advice to someone who is listening to this, what would it be?
I think it would be to know what is the purpose of your writing, why you're writing it, what connection do you have to the writing? Is it character based? Is it plot driven? Um, there's different writers out there who have different approaches. For me personally, I think if you put a priority on the characters, treat them like real people, give them respect, agency, and their own voice, then they will take care of you and help you with your writing, and that will help you grow as a writer because you are writing about the characters and not so much for whatever aims or agendas that you may have.
Mm-hmm. Right. So basically, just let the character guide you.
Let the character guide you is essentially the advice.
Mm-hmm. So to end the conversation, what are your next plans for 70 Fierce Years?
My next plans for 70 Fierce Years are to actually finish the novel itself. We are about 60 to 70% done, maybe a little bit less depending on what more will come. But I hope to finish 70 Fierce Years. There will be other projects with Andre and the rest of the cast, some of which will be some offshoots with a character named Tatuzia, and including some very heavy works that will deal with Russian cosmism and transhumanism through like a Soviet sci-fi futuristic lens.
That sounds really fantastic.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to embark on these projects.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see it published.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support and help through all this. None of this would have been possible without your help.
Thank you so much, and see you next time.
See you. Thank you.